So, is Strangeland the fifth album by the band?
We think of Strangeland as our fourth studio album. The Night Train EP was definitely just us sort of recording things on the road, so this is our fourth proper record.
How did the creation of this fourth album come about?
Well, we finished touring Perfect Symmetry at the end of 2009. Then all the Night Train stuff kind of got going, and we worked with Keane, the Canadian Somalian rapper, who's absolutely fantastic. That kind of then created its own tour and its own buzz around it. So we were off doing that. And then there were marriages, babies. Then there was time for Tim to settle down into his studio and start writing some new songs. And that was, I think, for him, quite a labour of love. And I think he came up with like 100 songs by the end of it. And that, I think, is the reason that the album has so much kind of strength in depth.
Tom, was it hard to get rid of the record label pressures after the major success of albums such as Hopes and Fears and Under the Iron Sea?
We tend to be quite free when we're recording, free of the pressures and deadlines. You know, with this record, we definitely set out with the idea that we weren't going to release it until we were 100% happy with it. We weren't even going to start it until we knew we had all the songs we needed and more than enough. And we recorded 19 songs. We thought we'd release a 10-song record, but all the arguments, we ended up putting together 12 songs for this record. So we don't feel too much pressure from outside, or at least we resist it, and the people who are around us tend to isolate us from any pressure to release an album. There's no point rushing things. You know, you'll only make mistakes and not be ready, or the songs won't be good enough, and that's not. I think if there's one thing we've learned, it's that we have to give ourselves time to make a really great record.
Dice que concerned about being commercial. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with the fact that, you know, people love you massively? Is it okay to be mainstream?
I think by its very nature, our music is quite commercial. The type of songs that Tim writes are very anthemic. You know, people love to gather in fields and sing those songs at the top of their lungs, and you know, they're very emotional as well. And I think that's something can be a little bit of a rarity with all the gizmo and affront that there is in popular music these days, or well, there always has been in rock and roll, you know. So I don't know if it's pressure. I think it's just hardwired into us. Those are the kind of things that we grew up loving. You know, we grew up in the 80s, so pop music and great singles was really the order of the day.
Tom, what was it like to work with Tim on these songs? Because you say you had 100 songs, and how did you guys go about choosing the songs, listening to the songs, listening to the demos, listening to them one by one? What was that like? Did they have lyrics? Did they not have lyrics? How did you go about listening to more than 100 songs and picking 12?
Well, over the course of about 6 months, Tim was sending through different songs, sometimes in batches, sometimes one by one. Just demos he'd done of him singing songs, sometimes with lyrics, sometimes without. Sometimes almost just short sketches of ideas of songs. And we just listen to them. We just spend time just getting to know them, and you see which ones you wake up in the morning with them going round in your head, or which ones you find yourself singing along to when you're driving your car, you know, almost without thinking about it. And then we get together and chat and just see how many we all love. And really it's quite democratic. It's quite hard on Tim. He'll slave over songs that we dismiss out of hand, and he has to just deal with that. And but at the same time, he knows that to make, you know, for a song to be really great, everyone has to love it. And so, yeah, he wrote about 100. He sent us about 50, and we just had these huge playlists on iPods and CDs and in our cars, just listen to them on endless loops, you know, for months and months.
Dice que durante para tenerlo dentro de un estudio. Tom, talk about Dan Grech and why you wanted to work with him, why he was the chosen one to be behind Strangeland.
Yeah, we wanted wanted to work with Dan Grech because we loved a few of the records he has made recently. I mean, obviously he worked on a lot of Radiohead albums, which, Radiohead obviously an inspiration to pretty much everyone. And he worked on some of Lana Del Rey's record, and also he made this record with the Vaccines that has so much energy and really sounds like a band in a room, and just you still connect with the heart and the soul of their songs, and we really wanted to have that immediate connection with our listeners, and so we just met Dan. We got on really well, and he's a very talented and lovely man, and we just had a great fun working with him.
Talk a bit about the house that Tim bought and how that house had an impact in the recording process of Strangeland.
Yeah, Tim bought a house down in Sussex, and it had a kind of big outbuilding where some guy used to store his vintage cars, and then it also had obviously a house as well. And weirdly enough, Tim decided he'd convert the garage into a recording studio before he gutted and renovated the actual house itself. He is driven by a fairly strong desire to make and record music, but it's been a massive benefit to Keane. I kind of say it in a joking fashion because really, it has been amazing to have that place to go to. It's become Keane HQ, and it's where all our gear is. We feel completely at home there, and it's very liberating to be able to have the time and the space and the right atmosphere in which to make our music.
And if it's important to be in the countryside?
It was important to us to have a place where we could go and sort of hide away and make our music. I think we feel most comfortable when we're in the countryside. You can just open the studio door and you can hear birds singing, or you can just go out and chuck a tennis ball around, or kick a football around. Tim's got a little field outside where he's put a couple of goals, and so you can just go and hang out together, which is basically what we did for our entire childhood. So it does feel natural, and I think we just feel comfortable making music there. And then you sort off to the pub in the evening and sing songs around the piano there. Sort of very much the same thing in a different context.
What you remember about Latin America from the last tour, what you remember about Colombia, and what you think is the major difference between the audiences that you deal with as a local band and the audience that you deal with when you come to Latin America?
They're very passionate people in Latin America. I don't think they have as many emotional inhibitions as maybe we do in this part of the world. So their guard comes down more easily, I think, and I always notice that when I'm singing at gigs in that part of the world. So that people just want to let go, they want to cry, dance, jump around, sing, yes. And, I think that's a very special thing. And I think the reason that our music seems to connect with those people is because of its kind of emotional honesty.
Tell me about the experience of having a new member of the band. Jesse's been with you for a while now. Tell me what it's been like, and tell me what it's been like, the inclusion of guitars in the new ensemble.
It's been brilliant. Yeah, he's breathed new life into the band. I don't think we can imagine the band without him now. He brings different things on a personal and a musical level that just add more to what makes Keane special. So I'm totally over the moon that Jesse's agreed to join as opposed to being invited.
About how strenuous it can be to be on the road and about all the problems that it's caused for the band. Have you learned how to do it now so far? How is it going in terms of going on tour?
Well, it's one of those weird things. I have actually got a terrible memory. Really, really bad. Probably because I don't really read enough, and I just skim read everything, and I look at pictures in books. I was going to say, but there's something about songs where I'm kind of hardwired to be able to remember them. I remember one of the biggest fears, and I remember Richard always used to say it before we did our first gigs, you better have learnt the words by the time we get to the first gig. And of course, we got to the first gig. I don't think I made a single mistake with the words. The first note Tim ever played live in a gig was a semitone out of tune. He was playing the bass. Yeah. Dominic, who was our guitarist at the time, had written a song, and he'd been going on at me about words, which he forgot the words to, or he sang them the wrong way round. Richard did all right though.
I did all right, but I can sit at the back and pretend that the mistake I just made was deliberate.
A fill.
Yeah. I was just going a bit jazz there.
It occasionally happens. It happened the other day when we were out in Zurich, Switzerland. Yes. Just forgot how a new song went, so just went.
But the thing is, when Tom's doing vocals in the studio, he'll sing the song so many times, and we'll be rehearsing the song, that in a way, I don't think you ever really have to learn the words. You tend to, they're in there, they're stuck in there. It's weird when you go back into the rehearsal room and you start playing Everybody's Changing again or something, and it's like, you have no idea how it goes, but if you just relax, your body will do it for you. It's like, as long as you're on autopilot, the words will come back in the rehearsal room, and then by the time you get to a gig, you can perform it properly.
Yeah, but I think people do also forget that I'm like a super fan of Keane. Like, I love Keane's songs, so I listen to them a lot, and so therefore that helps with learning the words.
He does. He waits outside gigs and tries to get our autographs and everything.
Yeah.
It's been great talking to you for the past minutes. Thank you for taking this call. And we'd like you to tell us a bit about the creation of Silenced by the Night and what it did for the band.
Well, there was some debate about whether that should make it onto the final record. But I think tonally, thematically, it felt like the right kind of song. It's sort of in a similar way to the Sovereign Light Cafe. It sort of, charts a story from days gone by. It's just a lovely, very beautiful ballad. Very beautiful synths and just a warmth to it.
The neon river that is referred to is the River Thames. I think we grew up in a town where a lot of people commuted to London and would leave in the day and come back at night. And I don't know, London seemed like a magical, far off, sort of mysterious place. And it's about sort of being left behind in this little town that we were growing up in and feeling like a lot of people were going off to this wonderful place. And I don't know, in the hope of finding something that I think we always thought you could find at home, if only you sort of looked for it. So, I love that song. I feel like we managed to, with a lot of this record, I think the playing really sort of took the songs to a new place. Sometimes with Tim's demos we just sort of replicate them, but I think with a lot of songs we actually took them somewhere else, and I think Neon River's an example of that.